But we're going to start off tonight by talking about some breaking news in just the last couple of hours. I mentioned the DOJ. Multiple things have come out from the DOJ today, but the biggest one here is it would seem that the DOJ is investigating a potential White House bribery for pardon scheme. This doesn't shock me in any way, shape, or form, especially because when I saw this story, I already had this story from earlier in the day on the docket for the show. That's the wrong one. Shit. Hold on. Rudy Giuliani discussed getting a preemptive pardon from Trump before the president leaves the White House, according to a report. The discussions detailed by the New York Times come as Giuliani leads a last-ditch effort by Trump's campaign to reverse President-elect Joe Biden's projected win in the Electoral College. Now, Giuliani has said that this is not true. But this doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. And it's also interesting that this story came out just hours after that report that the DOJ is investigating. Let's look at some of the details here. Federal investigators are looking into a potential bribery for pardon scheme involving presidential pardons, according to federal court documents unsealed by the chief judge for the federal court in Washington, D.C. The heavily... I hadn't read this story, so I didn't know that this is from unsealed court documents. When I saw the headline broke just like an hour ago. 5:59 p.m. on Central Time, so that was about an hour and some change ago. I didn't realize that this was from unsealed court documents. I figured this was a statement. Bill Barr made a lot of news today. We're going to talk about that here in a second. I thought this was another statement by Barr to possibly take some heat off of him. But this is interesting because if it's from unsealed court documents, that means they've been working on this case for a little bit. The heavily redacted documents revealed Tuesday do not name individuals involved or President Donald Trump. They also do not indicate if any White House officials had knowledge of the scheme. The opinion, entered by Chief Judge Beryl A. Howell on August 28th, is tied to an ongoing investigation that may involve at least two individuals who acted as lobbyists to senior White House officials without complying with the registration requirement of the Lobbying Disclosure Act to secure a pardon or reprieve of sentence. The investigation also involves an alleged offer by another individual to offer a substantial political contribution in exchange for a presidential pardon or reprieve of sentence. This political strategy to obtain a presidential pardon was parallel to and distinct from one individual's role as an attorney advocate for another individual, the ruling said, redacting both names. The White House has declined to comment. None of this surprises me, and as I've been saying on the show for weeks, Trump is going to pardon himself, or attempt to pardon himself. It's going to be interesting if he decides to try to pardon himself without stepping down, resigning, making Pence president, letting him do it. Then it's going to get challenged. We've never had this happen before. Whether a president can pardon himself would be a matter that would have to be taken up, probably go all the way to the Supreme Court. And clearly Trump has packed the Supreme Court in his favor. So what happens with that is anyone's guess. I mean, in olden times, before the courts had been packed by McConnell and Trump, I would have guessed that the court would laugh the idea that the president could pardon himself just out of the courtroom. Much like all the cases that Trump keeps bringing about election fraud that keep getting laughed out of the courtroom. However, now with Amy COVID Barrett, as some people have been calling her on Twitter, on the Supreme Court, because I would have guessed before Roberts would not rule in favor of a president being able to pardon himself. But now Roberts doesn't even really matter. Now, I would say the most likely scenario would be that the federal courts would rule no, and the Supreme Court would decline to take the case. Because I kind of don't see Trump resigning. Now, there has been talk of whether he could temporarily step down, like an emergency order, like Bush did for Cheney when Bush was under anesthesia. I could see that happening, possibly. So, it's going to be an interesting couple of months. Now, Barr made some other news today by issuing a statement. It says there is no evidence of fraud that would change election outcome. Now, there has been evidence of fraud. We've seen it. A couple of different cases of people trying to vote for Trump multiple times. We even played a video. Now, that was from the 2016 election. We played a video of a woman who said, yeah, I voted for Trump twice. So, Barr's comments in an interview with the Associated Press contradict the concerted effort by Trump, his boss, to subvert the results of last month's voting and block President-elect Joe Biden from taking his place in the White House. That's also a good question. Can he pardon himself if he's not under federal indictment? Can he just issue a blanket pardon? Now, there are several people on right-wing media that are calling for him to issue a blanket pardon. Now, he is an unindicted co-conspirator in the Michael Cohen case. So there could very well be a federal indictment sitting there waiting on him that will be unsealed. Yeah, they are incredibly stupid. I can't remember who it was now. I think Sean Hannity on his show was claiming that he needs to issue a blanket pardon for him and his entire family. Because let's face it, they're all knee deep in scandal. And this, man, some right-wing friend I had posted that Biden was the most corrupt politician in history. I'm like, have you seen Trump? What? I mean, Jesus Christ. But now, on the back of, before we do this, I do have the White House statement, or the Trump campaign statement, I should say, about Barr's comments on voter fraud. So, statement of Trump legal team on Bill Barr's comments on voter fraud. They don't even call him William Barr. What the fuck? And this is Rudy Giuliani, by the way, saying this. I already skipped down that. Yeah, this is from the mouth of Rudy Giuliani.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Yes, Rudy. With all due respect to the Attorney General, there hasn't been any semblance of a Department of Justice investigation. There hasn't been any semblance of evidence provided by the Trump campaign that there was fraud. God damn. You can't just investigate something if you're like, we're just supposed to go and like investigate all the ballots because Trump is throwing a fucking hissy fit. Jesus. We have gathered ample evidence of illegal voting in at least 6 states. They have not. It's a complete and total lie. They have a bunch of affidavits. We watched the video last night of this woman who was a poll worker who said there was something fishy about the box that was brought in. That's the kind of evidence that he's talking about. We have many witnesses swearing under oath they saw crimes being committed in connection with voter fraud. That's weird that the legal team has not presented any evidence of such to the courts. As far as we know, not a single one has been interviewed by the DOJ. The Justice Department also hasn't audited any voting machines or used their subpoena powers to determine the truth. Nonetheless, we will continue our pursuit of the truth through the judicial system and state legislators. Now that's key there. They are really attempting to get state legislators in Michigan and Pennsylvania to disregard the election results and flip the electors for Trump. And like what they're calling for in Georgia, just to throw out votes in districts they don't like, is absurd. We read the judge's ruling. That's not a remedy you can ask for. That's not how the Constitution works, was his exact quote. Again, with the greatest respect to the Attorney General, his opinion appears to be without any knowledge or investigation of the substantial irregularities and evidence of systematic fraud. Rudy is a dumb fuck. But now, later in the day, after Barr issued his statement to the Associated Press, it turns out that he has named John Durham as a special counsel. This is to be able to continue this Russiagate investigation once the Biden administration takes office. An inquiry by U.S. Attorney John Durham into whether federal investigators who pro-President Trump's 2016 campaign acted legally will be insulated from the next administration. This is just part of their concerted effort. They're trying to in key roles within the government. They're trying to bury people into these roles that Biden won't be able to fire. It would seem that Democrats in the House are trying to compile lists of who these people are. I mean, like, it's astounding what they're trying to get away with. Attorney General William Barr told Congress on Tuesday, revealing that he named Durham as special counsel for the Trump-backed probe 2 months ago. As special counsel, Durham will report directly to the next Attorney General, who can only fire him with good cause, according to the Justice Department regulations. Robert Mueller earned the same protection during his Russian election interference probe. But now, I seem to recall Trump wanting to fire Mueller multiple times and said he had the power to. Barr chose to give Durham the special counsel designation in October. They knew Trump was going to lose, telling the Associated Press it would allow Durham's 18-month probe to continue regardless of the election outcome. But he informed members of the House and Senate Judiciary Committees that he held off on notifying them until after Election Day in the public interest. This is absurd. He has the power to look into Mueller's probe and Crossfire Hurricane, a separate 2016 FBI investigation into the Trump campaign, according to his notification to Congress. But Barr told the AP that Durham is focusing on Crossfire Hurricane. Now that's what they call Russiagate. Anytime you hear commentators on the Hill or Fox News talking about Russiagate, they're talking about illegally spying on the Trump campaign. Multiple investigations have found, no, they were not illegally spied on. Seems sketchy. I'm actually amazed that he didn't come out and say it before the election. Because you would have thought that would have helped Trump's chances. To try, because a lot of what they did in 2020 was try to recreate the conditions of 2016. And him coming out and saying that would have been a lot like the Comey letter, when Comey testified that Hillary was still under investigation because of emails they found on Anthony Weiner's laptop.